Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
We are joined here once again by Syl Sabastian, our Professional of the Year, founder and creator of Nobelia.org, the Way of Impeccability and Moreness Project. He's here with his life-changing programs and coaching as an author, as a poet, and again, along with his dear friend Beena Sidd. We're excited to have you guys both here to talk more about what we want, how we're going to get it, and how you're helping so many people shift. How are you guys?
Wonderful. Yes. Well, we have such a blast, every day. Right, Beena? It's just a joy. It's a joy. We have a blast. And by the way, Beena is my co-collaborator, co-facilitator, and co-conspirator.
And your friend, partner in the crime. Of course.
I'm not sure what we are conspiring to, but well, I know we are co-aspiring. So actually she's a co-aspirator. How about that?
I love it.
Also, we are conspiring. Yes, we are conspiring. We are contributing. We are contributing in the universe, always conspiring whatever you want to, really want to. So we are just
there you go. Yes. And a conspiracy does go ahead, Jill. Go ahead.
No. I'm gonna say, and this is all in a good way. We're conspiring for the best. It sounds negative, like no.
Exactly. I'm not sure if absolutely by definition a conspiracy has to be negative. It may just be something that's private. You may conspire to do good. It's possible. Yes. I have to look that up. Anyway, so we're conspiring to do good. We conspire with the universe. The universe, and universe here I use is a very broad term. You can call it your higher self, your deeper self, your subconscious, your other self. You can call it whatever deity you like. You can go through the whole range of them. You can call it all of them. Doesn't matter. You can call it just basic energy or intent, if you like, which is a very good term for it. But something or other, there is an intent.
Yeah.
An intent to moreness. And that intent to moreness, at least that's what I call it. You can also see it as an intent to awareness. Right? And that when you look at this, actually, we've been really immersing in this topic on our lives that we do on Facebook. And this intent to moreness or intent to awareness, it really is a big deal when you really start to think about it. Now, typically, I've shared much about what we do in terms of not just the writing, but also what Beena does with me, which is co-facilitating the programs. And facilitating is the word, because there's no teaching, right? We facilitate. And because we're providing the tools. Mm-hmm. So, all right, there may be a little bit of guidance when it comes to how to use the tool, but we really strive for things to be self-evidently sensible. And when it is, okay, you figure it out for yourself. Very easy. And all you got to do really as a participant is simply do the tasks and exercises, do the practices. And when you do that, it takes care of itself, right? Because really what we are getting the participant to do, or participants plural, and actually we're going to, as part of our live, and likely when we start doing our own show, which is getting closer and closer, by the way, the Moreness show on OTT TV, very exciting. Yes, once we start that, we will do a group availability to the general public of doing Way of Impeccability. So anybody who wants to come, they can come. Yes.
By the way, Nobelia.org. Nobelia.org.
Exactly. Go ahead. Oh, that's it. Thank you. I always forget to put that in. That's very important. And in this public doing, anybody can come. I want to make it accessible to viewers and listeners and followers, everybody, right? Because there's quite a few that come fairly regularly. Yeah. And I'm always a bit, there's things they're missing because they haven't done the program, right? So they have to kind of catch up a bit. But if they did it, then they wouldn't be sort of behind the curve. At any rate, this point of self-evident sensibilities, this is a big deal, right, Beena?
Yes.
I want to practice handing off to Beena. I've got a lot more to say.
Beena,
I do have a question. Yes, I do have a question for you. Because yes, it is wonderful what we are going to do and what we are doing already. But I just want to know, of course, for everyone else, that how does Way of Impeccability help people who are in need of therapy? Does it really help? And also, yes, and also for the counseling. Just sometimes you don't need therapy, but counseling.
Yeah.
So what in these two areas, how does Way of Impeccability actually help you out?
That's a very great question. And we've had quite a few participants that had been and still were in therapy at time of starting Way of Impeccability. One noticeable one, a little quicker than most it took like, a month or two and they left the therapy. But one was with us for 2 weeks. Okay, she did everything really quickly. She'd been in therapy for 15 years. 15 years.
Yes.
And specifically related to a particular issue. Yeah. And this was resolved in 2 weeks. We didn't have the answer for her. Right. So this is the whole big point here, right? You go to therapy, your mindset is one of getting stuff fixed. That's typically when you go to therapy, right? I need to get stuff fixed. But when you focused on fixing, it is a negative emphasis, because now your entire brain is focused on fixing your problem. You immersed in problem. And so what happens is that you because of emphasis, you make all the nodes expand relative to problems. And suddenly you start to discover through this extra emphasis and attention and awareness that you've got a whole ton of problems that you never even knew.
Yes? Right. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And this bothered me since I was a teenager, actually. I saw this happening, and it really, and I hold it somewhat against the profession that you don't realize this. Yes. I mean, seriously, come on, this is your job. If you just pay attention to people, you see the power of immersion, right? At that time, it was simply noticing the power of immersion. They hadn't yet done the neurological studies which proven about the nodes. That's a very recent thing, actually. Hasn't been around that long, the neurological part of it. At any rate, so to answer Beena's question, how does Way of Impeccability help from a therapeutic or a counseling point of view? First of all, it starts with the very first slide says that it asks you, the participant, are you a good person in a bunch of different ways, right? It asks you a bunch of questions. Do you want goodness and moreness in your life? Do you want learning and growth, etc.? And you answer yes, 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 yes. And then the next slide says, now, if you've answered yes to all these questions, this proves conclusively that you are a good person.
Wow.
Yes.
That's where we start. And
it sounds so simple. So
right.
How you are saying, actually, it sounds so simple.
I know, it's not.
That first slide is really transformative, because you are not there for fixing. It completely shifts the mindset, complete a different paradigm that, okay, I'm not here to get fixed. And that is the real crux of that, okay, how Way of Impeccability actually eliminate the need of therapy and counseling.
Yes.
That is the problem, because Syl is mentioning that she was getting therapy for 15 years, but actually she was suffering for more than 3 decades for that problem.
Yes, correct. I mean, it was a long-standing issue.
Yes.
Right. So now we start off with this, and I'll just do a quick screen share here for those on video. I went through this when we started our series. We went through this in detail, and I remember asking Jill these questions, and Jill was saying, "Yes, you are a good person, right?"
I was. Yeah.
Right. So here's the question, which asks, which of these resonate or apply, capital A, apply to you? Say yes out loud. Right? And that was the key, to say yes out loud. You are a good person.
Yes.
Yes. You have integrity. Yes. You care about others. Yes. You have generosity, kindness, compassion. So it's in detail, right? I'm not going to go through all of them, but you get the point here, right? And you want more in life is the ending point. But now, we go through it fairly quickly here. Yeah. When we do this with a participant, now, some say yes, 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 and they get to those last couple. Can you be deliberately bad? Or let me go back there. Can you be deliberately? Oh, you cannot be deliberately bad. And some of them like, well, I think if I really tried, I could. And then we discuss that.
I was a black belt to do that. Yes.
Right, exactly. Just that their innate goodness. But then I said, Beena, if you had a good reason to be bad, wouldn't you actually wouldn't you actually be good, actually, even though you did something which is in the usual circumstance bad, right? But if you had a good reason to do it, then it's good, right? Well, let's say, there was a murderer who wants to murder your children. And you say, no, murderer, sorry, I'm going to get rid of you first before you get my children. Well, okay, I'm just saying it's an extreme, obviously, but I can't think of a better example right now. But sometimes we do things that aren't nice, but they are actually good. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Coming back to the therapy and counseling, because this is very, very important.
Yeah.
And especially people who have been in a situation like that. Because one of the other participants we had, and I was really shocked by that, because she had that relationship issue with her mother for 50 years, more than 50 years. And in one session, of course, she was doing that for 2 months. And then after that, in one session, she was going through all these things, and Syl just ask her a very simple question. It was, of course, very specific to her. But that question, and when she actually did that exercise, it was like now everything is completely changed. So I'm again asking you the same question, that can you, or can Way-of-Impeccability actually help people who are in need of therapy and counseling?
Why?
Wow.
First of all, because we changed the paradigm in which you are going to deal with whatever it is that he's dealing with. The key point is we're going to throw fixing out the window.
Okay.
And we are going to replace it with replacement, capital R replacement.
Okay.
And the example I use is you've got a problem with debt. Yeah. It's a very common problem. People know this problem. Right? If we help you and we get you to fix your debt, which can be done, right? Okay, so now you're at zero. You don't have any debt anymore. Have you solved the actual issue, which is that you don't have enough income? Right? Or you're spending too much for the income that you do have. So now you need to replace getting rid of your debt, which is, okay, I got people to help me out. I went on Kickstart or whatever, in many ways to do this, but you're not dealing with the real issue. If you replace it with a productivity mindset and increase what you're coming in, now you actually resolve the problem with an appropriate replacement. Because here's the thing with debt is a good example, because when you eliminate your debt, you get to zero, but you don't have a plus yet. And that's the same thing when we look at our inner problems. Yes, you can fix it, but then you just end up with nothing, and especially with bad habits. With bad habits, this is very problematic, because now you have a typical way of being that you've had most of your life. And suddenly you've got nothing, because you've now thrown this out, you've eliminated it. But we cannot be nothing. This is incredibly impossible for us to be. We can't be a nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So now you're like, well, okay, I know I mustn't be angry, but what do I replace it with? They don't even think replacement. Well, now what do I do if I can't be angry? And then the person gets stuck. And they get stuck because they don't know what to replace it with, and they're thinking replacement. They say, oh, I mustn't be angry, mustn't be angry, mustn't be angry. And they have nothing to fill that hole.
Yeah.
And then, well, better the devil you know than the one you don't know. Right? So they go right back to the old behavior. I mean, it's basically recidivism, the same as prisoners coming out of jail, right? They know that life, they don't have a replacement, they just go right back into it, right? Better the devil you know. So this is key. And once we make this shift for Beena to answer Beena's question about Way-of-Impeccability. Way-of-Impeccability is entirely all about replacement, adding to what you have, enhancing the positive, replacing whatever there is that's a negative with a positive. Now, you say, but I've tried this, I've done many courses. The problem with courses is the things didn't stick, because most of them are asking you to sort of remember what was said and then to do it, right? You're told to do this, do this, do this, and you'll be fine. That doesn't work for us as people, not when it comes to who we are. Why? Because you have to make it your own, and that goes in the participants' dictionary of power, right? And they create their own dictionary of power.
Wow.
It's not my stuff that goes in there, it's yours. So making it your own in whichever way you call that yourself. You may call it self-incorporation, self-absorbing, understanding, capital U, whatever. It doesn't matter the term. But the point is that if you don't make it your own, then it's not going to sit in you, it's not going to work. And in order for you to make it your own, you have to have the logic, the reasoning, the sensibility, the justification, the substantiation. This must all sit with you. You can't have any doubts.
True.
It will never be yours. And that is integral to the program. Doing repeat backs and takeaways and the tasks and exercises and all the discussion we do, it's all about you sharing how
That's
you
right.
understand this new replacement, this new tool, how you understand it, how it makes sense to you. And of course, you know, if we spend 2 hours, which is the typical time of a session, sometimes it goes longer.
Wow. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, not 45 minutes. It's too little. You know, you go to the 40. That's just when you start getting started, right? You kind of get all the preamble out the way, and the things are just starting to get good, and time's up. No. So, you know, we find usually there about hour, 15 minutes, hour and 30 minutes, somewhere in there, that's when the crux happens, right? Now, again, sometimes it takes a little longer, sometimes a little quicker, but on average, typically. So that 2 hours, very, very important. And it's twice a week as well for the immersion. It's very important. Now, that, like I was saying, the process of what we're doing is not us telling stuff to the participant. No, it's the reverse. They sharing with us. Fine, they'll do like this particular slide that I shared that we do together. But generally, there's content. And you as a participant, you got to take that content and come back. Well, do on your own, you do a repeat back, and then you do a takeaway. And that explained in detail what it is. So on your own, you go and do the homework, as it were. Then when you come on Zoom, you share the repeat back and the takeaway and the tasks and exercises when they are, you know, what happened and how this went. And we're listening to what went on during the week. How did it go? How are you relating? How are you changing? How are you implementing? How are you praying? It's all about you. It's not about us. It's all about you. But it's not just like the therapist that's sitting there, you know, how does the therapist hands go? I don't know. There's a way they sit, right? That way of sitting. Anyway, we don't do that. We are actively involved. You know, sometimes we'll do a lot of talking, right, Beena?
Yeah.
Because we're sharing perspectives and understandings, and then it's like, see, okay, and they're fitting it in. But it's all about the participant thinking things through to the end, right? And when that's written, it's all hyphenated, and the to the end is all in all caps. That's why it's got to be shouted, because it is absolutely critical to go all the way. That's like if you're running an experiment in science class, if you do it 95% of the way,
so true.
Sorry, it may or may not work, but you have to go all the way. So that's the number one step. The second key thing is that what we are facilitating the participant to do is to perspective shift to multiple perspectives. That's very key. Because when we want to understand something that is a whole, that's not linear, how do you understand the sphere? You've got to come at it from multiple angles, and at some point your brain puts, okay, and it puts all the parts together, and then it kind of falls into place and clicks. And when you know this is what you're doing, we're coming at it from an angle, we're coming at it, and at some point that understanding kicks in because you've got enough parts, and then it fits into play. I get it now. And that is a most wonderful thing too. That's what Beena was talking about, right, Beena? When you said about whether the one participant you were thinking of, where it fell into place.
And I want to share another story about this. It's a very quick one, but very, very life-changing for some. Okay, anyway, one of the participants was struggling with the issue, like, okay, early age, fathers die and all these things, and she was struggling with that. And without Syl having any idea, without me having any idea, and of course, other participant, we were just sharing, and of course, everything was coming up. She herself realizes that she was carrying the guilt of her father's death as like, I did something wrong. And it was not in the awareness. And it was like, okay, she was in her early 30s and she was carrying that. And that guilt, that, of course, it's a horrible guilt. And she was carrying that without having any logical reason for that. But she became aware of that how I was adopting this idea. Of course, there is involved into this,
Exactly.
and also some other shoulds nonsense also involved into this. And
Yeah.
that thing carrying as a big, huge guilt. And it was actually, of course, very devastating for her overall her personality and her life path. And she realizes, we don't know, we had no idea that, okay, how these things were for her. And she realizes after some sessions, of course, not okay, after years, I guess. And then she realizes that I am the one who is carrying that guilt. And that was like, oh my God, she didn't share with us. And of course, she carries on. And then after that, like the 6th month, and then she says that I was recovering myself from that completely false guilt. I had nothing to do with that. And it was not an accident, it was natural death and nothing. She has nothing. She was just 5-year-old. But that guilt was there. I
Isn't that
could
incredible?
save him. I could save him. And that was like, oh my God. And that was something that she became like really able to understand that what is my real problem, what is the root cause, why I'm so still connected, is still clinging, is still actually living in those moments where my father was dying.
And look what it's. So go ahead, Beena. Sorry, I thought you were done.
Really a transformation, and that transformation, we had nothing to do with that.
Correct.
She was the only person who really did this for herself.
Yes. But now what assisted her to get into that was, first of all, going through it all the way. With an openness. Now, this we'd already done sessions and participation, so the procedure was there in terms of going and looking at it multiple perspectives, and you just keep going. You just, even if you don't know where it's going to end because it's not linear, you just persist. Plus, also in our conversations, we're sharing how are you, what's going on, just talking, just connecting. The underlying understanding of psychology which we have, which is extensive and very sophisticated, this starts to come through. And in this case, there's a particular conception that is part of Way of Impeccability, and that is association management. Now, first of all, you need to be aware of associations. And when we understand how associations work, and I use the example of somebody being afraid of crossing a threshold, right? You get some of this like a phobia. And the reason for it is when they were a kid, they were right stepping over the threshold and a spider fell on them and they freaked out, right? Right in that exact moment, stepping over the threshold, that association of the intense fear and scare from the spider was connected with the threshold, right? Now, it's an irrational connection, but that's what the brain does because it's in that moment, right? And we tend to do this. Now, you see right there, one little story, and we understand associations. Oh, they're not always reasonable, not always random. Sometimes they come just completely by accident, and we've connected two things which needed to be connected, which aren't in and of themselves connected. It's not the threshold that's the problem, it was the spider, but we've made that association. And when we understand association management, we can now start to appropriately associate. Yes, I'm still scared of the spider and I don't like spiders, but the spider had nothing to do with the threshold, right? So that, and it's so many things, right? You know, I mean, people like, I mean, I just can speak now from women particularly, you know, a woman was raped and the person was of a particular ethnic specificity. And so she had a negativeness towards that ethnic group, and it just carried over, right? And when we sort of said, well, is it all men of that ethnicity? Are they all bad? Well, no. It was just such a duh, right? And it was like, oh my goodness, I've been doing this all my life and I never even realized it. And one of the key tools that we utilize, right, from our perspective, right, we say awareness is self-curative. Right, Beena?
Yes, in many cases, yes.
And exactly. And that, like in this case now, it was awareness, simply awareness to say, oh, I made this association and it's inappropriate. And then you can change it. Now, of course, you can start the process of change. And that's why Beena is very cautious there. She says, in many cases, right? You're just covering herself there. Very smart. Why does Beena say this? Because the awareness alone is not always enough.
Exactly.
Why? Because of habits. Because of habits.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. We know it's wrong to do, but we're so in the habit, and our brain is so trained in that habit that we do the thing that we know is inappropriate to do, but we do it without thinking, because that's what a habit is. A habit is a cultivated
it's
unawareness.
a hard habit to break. Thinking about that old Chicago song. It's true.
Exactly. So because a habit is a cultivated, deliberate, unawareness routine.
Yes.
Isn't that what you want from a habit? You don't want to be thinking about it. You want to do it automatically. So when it's a bad habit, you're not even aware that you're doing it. And that's why Way of Impeccability is focused on deliberate living, which means that you are being aware all the time. And there are techniques and practices.
We must call it most empowering, really,
Correct.
because we must call it, because people sometimes they don't understand that what deliberate living is. Actually, this is true empowerment, what it is, really. Because when you can be deliberate, it means that you are empowered enough. The same with that woman, when she was struggling with this guilt, which she was not aware. That was the moment of empowerment for her that she discovered by herself. And we have so many other, of course, stories, amazing stories. Like a woman in her 60s was struggling, whole life struggling with some inventors from some guy in family. And one day she shared, and then we discussed with her the self-conception with a very profound tool. And the next meeting, she did nothing. She just entered. And that was the way that guy was completely changed after 50 years of relationship.
Wow.
No single word, without saying a word from her side. And she was literally jumping with happiness when she came next time. And she says that was some magic. It was
I love the two of you together creating and helping people with their magic. And you guys, I wish we had an hour show. Unfortunately, we don't.
No,
that's all right. We'll come back next week.
How do we reach out to you? Share with us, please.
Nobelia.org/connect.
Beautiful. And in closing,
and we'll bring a third guest next time.
Oh, exciting. Really? Who? Anyone? You can tell me?
Well, it's an author and a life coach, and there's a very good reason why I'm thinking to bring her. I'll have to check with her for time, but
beautiful.
You'll see
Sounds good. Thank you so much, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you so much, Jill.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.